So in this video I'm going to give you a complete comparison between a backpacking trip to Central America and a backpacking trip to Southeast Asia. I got back from Southeast Asia a couple of months ago. I went in the summer of 2023, and I've also spent a couple of months in Central America, which I did in Easter time of 2022. So I'm going to break this video down into 5 categories. We're going for travel, cost, food, experience, and then safety more generally. So by the end you should be able to know whether a trip to Central America or Southeast Asia is right for you. Let's get on with it. So both Southeast Asia and Central America do cater well to budget-minded backpackers. However, Southeast Asia definitely comes out on top. So accommodation in a hostel is usually as low as about £5 per night, and much nicer options can be found for less than 20 in Southeast Asia. However, in Central America it is slightly more expensive, with hostels between £10 to £15 per night, but this can reach, well, to much higher prices if you do want those much more luxurious hostels or hotels. In terms of the price of eating, well, street food is king in Southeast Asia, as I'll come on to later, so you'll be paying maximum £1–2 for a meal if you do go for street food. In Central America, street food is a lot harder to find, and you will get tired of it after a while, so you'll end up staying in restaurants which are maybe a bit more American and £10 in price. Transport in both regions is fairly similar price, however it's much more well connected in Southeast Asia. You will have to get shared shuttles in Central America, which can reach about £30. So if I'm going to wrap it all up in total in terms of cost, you're going to be spending about £30 to £40 per day in Southeast Asia, maybe compared to about 45 to 65 in Central America if you go for budget hostels. So it is quite a bit more expensive. Obviously that depends on which activities you do, which we'll come on to in a bit, but it's kind of a going rate to what to budget for: 30 to 40 in Southeast Asia and 45 to 65 per day in Central America. Category 2 is travel, and now travel is much easier in Southeast Asia, and that's mainly because people go between loads and loads of different routes, and so the demand is there. However, in Central America you're going to be ending up paying for shared shuttles, as the transport hubs tend to be the capital cities there, which aren't the safest. And yeah, I wouldn't recommend in terms of backpackers. So if you're going to be spending £30 for a shuttle, that's your entire day's budget pretty much in Central America. In Southeast Asia, you could be paying £30 for an 18-hour overnight luxury bus where you get your own cabinet and curtain, which sometimes is even more comfortable than a hostel. There are local buses in Central America. These are called chicken buses, and they are absolutely chaotic, but I wouldn't recommend getting them despite them being cheap, because they don't have a great reputation for safety. They roar around mountain passages and through tight bends, and they also have a reputation for having lots of petty crime on them, especially targeted towards tourists. So I'd stay away from those and instead take the more reputable bus companies such as Tika Bus if you are going to Central America. We'll come on to safety later, but they are definitely the ones to go with, especially because it's mainly tourists and locals use the chicken buses. Wow! Category 3, and this is activities. Now, Central America definitely wins on this category, but that's only if you're wanting more of an outdoor nature experience. So in Central America, you could be swimming in one of the biggest barrier reefs in the world in Belize. You could be hiking up volcanoes. You could be on a turtle sanctuary in Costa Rica. It's more of an outdoor culture, and it's the most biodiverse place on earth, so you're going to be seeing loads of different animals. In Southeast Asia, you don't really see that many animals. Obviously, the elephants is the most popular thing to do, and you might see a few monkeys at Angkor Wat, but generally it's not about nature. It's more of a compromise towards kind of party drinking, but also you see some really good scenery as well. In Central America, it's a lot easier to avoid the party scene if that's not what you're after. However, Southeast Asia, it is much more catered to the kind of graduate route. and so it's harder to avoid if you don't want that. However, there is some incredible scenery as well in Southeast Asia. It's not just party central. You've got the Hajiang Loop, some of the best scenery I've ever seen, Halong Bay, and the scenery in northern Thailand is also stunning. So it depends on what you're looking for on this front. In terms of price of activities, they're both kind of very similar in each. Central America, to go Pacatanango volcano, which was the highlight of my trip, cost about £60. To do the Hajiang Loop was about £60 per day with an easy rider, so going around on the back of the motorbikes. So in terms of that front, it's actually quite similar. In Central America, the tourist areas are centered around these activities. For example, Monteverde in Costa Rica is the capital of outdoor activities. You can go on this incredible zip line that goes over the jungle canopy, and that cost me about £35 to £40. In Southeast Asia, you don't really get that, which does mean you save quite a lot of money because there's less activities to do. However, it's less catered towards that kind of adventure off the beaten path travel that Central America definitely has in terms of activities. Now we're halfway through this video, so if you don't mind going down to subscribe, I gave you absolutely all of this for free. It cost you nothing, so do me a favour, just hit the red subscribe button below and it would mean a lot. So the next category is food and culture. Now, Central America has quite a blended culture. There aren't many differences between the countries there in terms of their food, which is mainly beans and rice generally. And this is excluding Mexico, which does have such a rich culture and distinctive cuisine of Mexican food, which is so popular around the world. So the further you go south from Mexico, the less Mexican influence there is. So the food is less tasty and you will get bored of it after a while and turn to more American restaurants that there are in Costa Rica and Panama. However, in Southeast Asia, the cultures are quite distinct between Vietnam, Cambodia and Thailand. So you're completely different foods really. Cambodia is a mix of Thai and Vietnamese. The nicest two by far are Thai and Vietnamese cuisine that you've probably eaten in the UK. It's dead cheap. It's so cheap. You'll get street food everywhere. And when you're sick of street food after a while, you can have a few days break. You can easily hop back on it. The hostels do amazing food out there, and you'll be paying a little bit more for more European style food, but it's nowhere near as expensive as in Central America, which obviously attracts a lot of Americans who are after their American foods. In terms of culture, again, it's very distinct in Southeast Asia. In Central America, it's quite similar culture. Guatemala and Mexico stand out as being the most cultured, most unique cultures, whereas Panama and Costa Rica and a few of the other ones kind of blend in a little bit. They all speak Spanish over there, so if you don't know any Spanish at all, I'd advise you do speak a little bit, try and learn a bit on Duolingo, whereas in Southeast Asia, everybody speaks English, so you won't have much of a problem at all. On this front, it just depends what you're after. If you want a bit more of a unique cultural experience, I'd definitely say go to Southeast Asia. However, if you want to go to a region you don't really speak the language, you'll learn a lot more and you'll be out your comfort zone a lot more, then I'd go with Central America. And the final category is safety. Now, if I was making a video just on Southeast Asia, I'd say this isn't an issue really at all. I've not really heard that many experiences of tourists getting targeted or any petty crime really, other than falling off mopeds and motorbikes, which does happen surprisingly frequently. In Central America, however, I'd avoid the capital cities at all costs. If you have to travel through them to get your buses, that's fine, but they're not recommended for tourists. The tourist hubs, well, just search them online. Where do most tourists go? And it'll be safe there. You won't really have any issues. I spent 2 months there and I didn't have any issues at all. Just make sure you're more wary. Obviously, there's a lot of gang-to-gang crime in Central America. It does have that reputation, and protests can kick off at any time. So when I was over there, the El Salvador border closed because they had the most homicide rates, highest homicide rate they've ever had in a single day. So they declared a national emergency. So that can pop up at any time in Central America, whereas it doesn't really happen in Southeast Asia. So if you want 100% safe, well, I say 100%, if you want to be sure you're going to be safe, then Southeast Asia is maybe the better option for you. If you want to take a little bit of a risk, Central America, you won't have any problems, but there is always a chance. So overall, there's obviously no 100% right answer. However, it just depends what you're suited to. If you're after an outdoor adventure, seeing loads of different animals like sloths, monkeys and quetzals, which you can't see at home, or trekking up volcanoes for magnificent sunrises and some opportunities to chill with a beer on the beach or at a hostel pool, well, Central America is for you. There are drinking chances, it's not like you won't touch a beer during your 2 months there. However, there's way less opportunities than in Southeast Asia. However, if you do want to see some incredible scenery, experience a varied culture and taste some really good street food, all while having the opportunity to drink every night and go to bars and restaurants, Southeast Asia might be your best bet. However, if you do go to Southeast Asia, you should be mindful you will be with thousands of other graduates that are mainly European and Australian, so that shouldn't bother you too much, and you shouldn't also want to go too far off the beaten path. However, in Central America, that is exactly what it is. It's a little bit off the beaten path. If you're solo, I'd go to Southeast Asia first because it's easier to travel around. However, if you've done a few solo trips in Europe, you'll be fine with Central America, just like I was. People tend to follow the same path in Central America, so either north to south, whereas in Southeast Asia, it's a bit more varied where people go and which direction people go city after city. However, that was my roundup, and it's not easy to get through in a 10-minute video, so I hope you have enjoyed and found it useful. It all depends on your personal preference. That was just for me. If it was my choice, I did choose Central America, but that was because COVID cut off Southeast Asia when I wanted to go. I'd still go Central America again if you want my definite answer. So I hope you found this informative, and I will see you in the next video next week.